us at Montana Conservation Corps are proud of the small part we've had in this young woman's journey. I know you're going to love her story. Please join me in welcoming her again. Katheryne.
Hey guys. Before we get started, can I have everyone stand up for a second? Great. Now can everyone sit down?
Just power.
You know, people always say you can tell a leader by the way they're able to command a room. Thank you for that elevation. All right. Hello, my name is Katheryne and I'm here on behalf of Montana Conservation Corps. First off, I just want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It is truly an honor to be amongst such amazing and inspiring people. As a child, I was always encouraged to play outside, but was never involved in anything in the outdoors. Aside from the occasional Girl Scout canoe trip that my mom would help chaperone, my time outside was pretty domestic. My love for our wild spaces evolved during my early college years. I was on the rugby team, and my coach took it upon herself to organize a team camping trip to McAfee's Knob in Southern Virginia. I didn't have a pack of my own, and I didn't have my own sleeping bag. All I knew is that I wanted to spend more time with this team that I had loved so much. It was an opportunity to be in a space where I had never been and with people with whom I felt completely connected to. That trip was so influential in how I viewed myself. I was in the company of some of the most inspiring, eccentric, and caring individuals that I had known in my life, and I remember hiking up to McAfee's Knob, where we stood on the precipice above a sea of clouds, thinking this moment is absolute bliss. From that point on, I was hooked. I started hiking with friends, I found new places to explore in Southern Virginia, but as I progressed through my college career, I realized that I was headed towards a lifetime of office work instead of the life in the outdoors that I now yearned for. In my last year of college, I planned for a through hike of the Appalachian Trail. What better way to finish one chapter in my life than with an epic walkabout in the woods? That year, I spent hours at my coach's house as she cooked me dinner while I pored over guidebooks and magazines and online forums. My dad and I made numerous trips to REI, and I was constantly looking for gear online. During my planning phase, I was advised to make the absolute most of this trip, to make it as meaningful as it could be. I decided to turn my walkabout into an advocacy campaign for LGBTQ youth. I partnered with a queer youth organization based out of Richmond, Virginia, and organized a small fundraiser in town, as well as a fundraising site to help online, or to help with the trip, sorry. I gathered materials that were easy to carry in my pack and that could be left with any hiker that was willing to have a conversation. And then finally, everything was coming together, and my start date came closer and closer. I had all of my drop boxes packed and addressed, and I had my hiking partner, and I bought my train ticket to Maine. 2 months on the trail gave me time to talk to strangers about a variety of things: which pack or tent was better, what was their favorite backcountry meal, and what they would be doing if they were not on the trail. But most importantly, I was able to talk to them about the struggles facing LGBTQ youth, bringing awareness to others about a community that is often ignored and that lacks the support that is so incredibly necessary during their formative years. It wasn't always obvious if these conversations had an impact on whoever was willing to listen, but more often than not, they led to further discussions of the homogeny of the hiking community. My trail name Unicorn often came into play as other hikers noted what a rare sight it was to see someone like me out there. Unfortunately, these conversations were cut short when I decided to leave the trail early. My knees had taken a beating after hiking close to 10 hours most days, and it was getting extremely difficult to convince myself to press for the mileage I needed. I kept convincing myself that I was only going to go home for a short while to regroup, but deep down I knew it was going to be some time before I would spend long days on the trail again. Shortly after coming home, I worked on repairing my knees and looked for other opportunities to get back outside. I had a few conversations with a friend of a friend who encouraged me to pursue a term of service with the Conservation Corps. It seemed perfect. I had heard good things about AmeriCorps and had a general idea of how it worked. And really, the aspect that I missed the most when I was hiking the trail was that consistent company. People that I could talk to, people that knew me. I didn't exactly know what working on the Conservation Corps meant, but I knew it was my best option. I soon found myself packing up my Suzuki and hitting the road to Vermont to work with Vermont Youth Conservation Corps. On my first crew, we deemed ourselves the Cons 4 crust punks. We were living that dirty, grimy lifestyle and absolutely loving it. We took pride in the calluses on our hands and the leg hair we refused to shave. Per usual, I was the only minority in the immediate group and one of only three females. The bond I created with the women on my crew is something that I am forever grateful for. However, there were pieces of my identity that were lacking in the crowd I saw before me. The ladies and I shared similar skepticism from those back home and in the field of our calling to work in the woods, but the themes prompting these questions were not coming from the same places. While they received questions of what work they would find in Vermont, I was asked to validate what community might be found for me there. Although I could not plead my case that I belonged in the Green Mountain State, the people in my Corps were reason enough for me to seek the same sense of community in other wild spaces. Shortly after my time of service ended in Vermont, I started looking for my next Corps. However, this time I knew I wanted to be a leader. I had heard pretty adamantly that Montana was the place to be to grow as a leader. I was enticed by the pictures I saw and the prospect of being in a completely new environment. I didn't think twice about accepting the job at Montana Conservation Corps, that is, until I got to the airport. Uncertainty sank in. I had no concept of Montana, other than that it was this far west state that had a mixture of beautiful mountains and ranch lands. It definitely didn't seem like it would provide the melting pot of cultures that I was used to in the suburbs of Washington, D.C. I had so many emotions overflowing as I prepared to get on the plane, but with big hugs from my mom and dad, they assured me that everything would be okay, and they were so proud, and I was doing something daring and worthwhile, and with that encouragement, I was off to Montana. I'm convinced that my time in Montana was the best summer of my life, something I never thought I'd hear myself saying. And I'm convinced it was because I had such incredible support coming from all facets of my life that kept me going. I had bosses that were fun, easygoing, and passionate. I had coworkers that were so different but so similar. We often found that even after spending 80-hour work weeks together, we still wanted to hang out on our days off. I had roommates who were so supportive and inclusive and unique, making coming home from a hitch that more exciting. I had project sponsors who had been in the conservation field for years and provided guidance and advice to help us create the best futures we could for ourselves. However, as always, with the good comes the bad. I specifically worked out of Acton, Wyoming for 6 weeks with 2 crews. And while my session with my first crew was wonderful, I had a harder time during my second session. At this point, I was starting to recognize microaggressions that were exhibited by some of my direct project sponsors. There were moments where I was actively ignored and the direction and delegation was given to my male counterpart. There were moments where my work was met with skepticism as if I had not been doing conservation work for almost a year. My name was forgotten and misspelled on an evaluation after spending weeks with a particular person. And even worse, not only did I experience these microaggressions from my superiors, I also felt them coming from some of my teenagers. In this field, my race made me stand out, but my gender made me dismissible. It made me go back and forth between doubting my position as a leader and trail builder and feeling extremely defiant to prove people wrong. With the help of my co-leader, my boss, and friends, I came to the realization that this struggle was a very important part of creating a new force of trail builders. Just like my time on the trail and in Vermont, my presence was something that broke the homogeny of the crowd often seen in the outdoors. The sight of me carrying a tool on my pack and in my hand was an image that took a minute to be processed. I had dialogue with my students about the behavior and action of some of our sponsors, my doubt of being a respected conservationist and finding a sense of place in states like Montana and Wyoming. It was bittersweet to have them see the discrimination occurring at the workplace, yet their acknowledgments of what was occurring created hope within me that they might just be able to see the larger trends that exist in society today. I was adamant on telling my students, especially the young women, that they could make excellent contributions to the teams that are out there protecting our wild spaces. I tried to bring the concept of representation and diversity to the forefront with the idea of it creating a completely different experience and connection to the lands than what they were used to. From various conversations with my students, I discovered a new sense of hope for what millennials are capable of. Thinking of what could be has landed me in yet another term of service with the AmeriCorps in the NCCC Pacific region. I am currently on a specialty team known as Green 1, working with the Bureau of Land Management. We've taken a liking to calling ourselves Verde Uno, an appreciation of making this experience more of our own. Although the team is small, it is packed with individuals of diverse backgrounds. As a whole, this is the most variety I've had the opportunity to work with. Verde Uno consists of 4 young men and 4 women. Out of the 8, 4 of us break the mold for societal standards. Serving alongside members who are also part of communities that reflect facets of my own identity offer a promising term of service. No longer will I be the queer individual to create associations to a community I've been a part of for so long. No longer will I be the only young woman getting her hands dirty in the vast wilderness our country has to offer. And no longer will I be the only person of color to teach people that Black lives matter. We are the new faces of conservation, faces that make the outdoors welcoming to everyone. I am here so the thought of our wild spaces remains for those not belonging to a certain type of person, background, education, and profession. I'm looking to create a new force of 21st century conservationists that ensures that wildlands are for all. Thank you for your time.